The market's in an itsy-bitsy little gully right now. It's like everybody said, okay, that was crazy, let's just all calm down.
My favourite film in 2015 was Adam McKay's The Big Short. When I first watched this film, I thought it was a comedy. When I watched it for about the 5th time during the pandemic, I realised it was also a drama. But now I'm watching it in 2022, I realised that all along it was a tragedy. The film does a really good job of putting you in the perspective of a few traders who are shorting the US housing market during the 2008 financial bubble.
Just to answer the question, Georgia, can you name one time in the past year where you checked the tape and you didn't give the banks the AAA percentage they wanted?
It shines a light on the sheer amount of greed and willful blindness that led to the crash, from the rating agencies selling ratings.
If we don't give them the ratings, they'll go to Moody's, right down the block. If we don't work with them, they will go to our competitors. Not our fault, simply the way the world works.
To a pole dancer believing she can buy 5 properties in a boat.
What do you mean all your loans? We're talking about 2 loans on 1 house, right?
I have 5 houses and a condo.
Although Michael Burry is the name most commonly used in headlines, it's Steve Carell's character Mark Baum that always stays in my mind. That's why in this video today I want to walk through one scene which for me perfectly illustrates the big tragedy of Mark Baum's position, while also where possible explaining a little bit about the economics of what's happening in the scene.
Thank you. Thanks for coming so quickly, Mark.
Yeah.
I know you've been hearing rumblings about some losses Morgan has suffered.
Congratulations.
On what? Oh, thanks.
Having fun?
Yes. Tons. I just wanted you to know that, yes, Morgan has suffered some losses.
By this point in the film, Mark's position is up a lot, but we learn from Ryan Gosling's character that his own bank might be caught up in this financial crash.
Fuck you very much.
Jared, it's chaos down here. Where are we?
And seas are wet, for there were no more worlds to conquer.
Shane? Shane? Well, nobody's buying CDO or mortgage bonds anymore, and everybody wants swaps.
Swaps are now the most popular product on the street.
That's good for us.
Yes and no.
I heard from somebody who heard from somebody. No, Alex. No. Sorry. Benny Kleeger over at
Morgan is taking on some heavy losses in the bond department. Your ship might be taking on water. It might be time to get her life jacket and get out.
Benny Kleeger is made up, but Howie Hubler isn't. Howie Hubler is a former Morgan Stanley bond trader who is best known for his role in the 3rd largest trading loss in history. Benny Kleeger or Howie Hubler's losses could have easily made Morgan Stanley non-liquid, in which case they would have had to have filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. If that happened, anyone that had money in Morgan Stanley wouldn't be able to get it out until the Chapter 11 proceedings were over. Adam McKay, the director, could easily have you, the viewer, believe Michael is only taking money from greedy people. They could have easily made this woman an arrogant arsehole and have Baum relish in this moment. But that's not what happens. When Mark confronts the bank, he's sat opposite a human being, a mother and a colleague.
But our liquidity is strong, and there's no cause for concern.
Would Benny Kleeger be concerned? Because word on the street is that he took some pretty heavy losses. Kathy, come on. We know each other. What's going on? How bad is this?
Okay. 2 years ago, Benny Kleeger in Morgan's bond department also started shorting subprime housing, $2 billion in @BBBs.
Benny is smarter than I thought.
Let's break this down very simply. Benny Kleeger bought $1 billion in mortgage bonds. The bank then expects to buy back the bonds for $1 billion at a later date. Why would the bank do this? Aside from collecting a fee from Benny Kleeger, the bank can also do what it wants with Benny Kleeger's $1 billion. Once Benny Kleeger has the BBB mortgages, he can then sell them at the market price of $1 billion. Benny's goal is, in the future, he is hoping to buy them again for something like $800 million, then sell them back to the bank for a $200 million profit. This is exactly what Steve Carell's character Mark Baum is doing here, only while trying to be smart, Benny makes a mistake so ironic and so tragic that it feels right out of Shakespeare. And it's the exact same mistake that Howie Hubler made back in 2008.
Benny is smarter than I thought.
No, he's not smart at all. The premiums on the swap ate into his desk's profit. To cover his BBB shorts, he sold a lot of A and AA swaps as protection. A lot. He believed that there was no way that they could be affected.
Tell me Morgan Stanley doesn't hold the contracts on these swaps. Holy shit. All this time I've been trying to figure out who I'm betting against, and it's Morgan Stanley, which is me.
Okay, so what happened here? Well, remember those fees I mentioned? Turns out Benny shorted so many shitty BBB mortgage bonds that he was running out of cash to pay the fees. So in order to get cash to pay for the fees, he saw that people like Michael Burry and Mark Baum would be willing to short AAA rated bonds or CDOs.
What if we bet against the AA tranches? Who's not gonna take that bet? I'll bet you right now that those AA's are actually like B's.
I rarely ever say these words, but I think Charlie's right. Look, Ben, the payoff is 200 to 1, but they're all taking the ratings at face value, so they're charging pennies on the dollar to bet against the AA's.
Just when I start thinking you guys are clowns. No one on the planet is betting against AA. The banks will think we're either high or having a stroke, and they'll take every dime we have to offer. Kind of brilliant.
Since his bank had a load of AAA rated CDOs, not knowing that these CDOs were just bunches of bad BBB mortgage bonds grouped together, he got Morgan Stanley to loan them. Once loaned, Benny used the fees he took from people like Mark Baum and Michael Burry to pay the fees on his BBB rated short position. But at some point, just like the BBB rated stock he shorted, eventually Morgan Stanley would have to buy back these awful AAA rated CDOs from people like Mark Baum and Michael Burry for what Morgan Stanley originally loaned them for. This is called their exposure. AAA rated mortgage bonds that were actually filled with BBB rated mortgage bonds that were actually filled with defaulting loans, not profitable mortgages. So even when these CDOs turned out to be worth nothing, Morgan Stanley's exposure would be the price they originally loaned them for.
What's your exposure, 3 billion? Please don't tell me it's more than 4.
I can't answer that. I can't answer that.
Yes, you can answer that, because I walk in here and people are crying in your hallway. Kathy, you bring me in to tell me everything's fine, and everything's not fine. What is happening?
The long exposure is 15 billion. He kept saying defaults over 8% were impossible.
Oh my God.
That there would be 1 million homeless.
Oh.
Yeah, but we have nothing to do with Morgan Stanley.
Yeah. Tell the bankruptcy court.
Steve Carell's performance in this film really stands out. Even among the world-class A-list actors in the cast, for me, it's the moment where he hears the words 15 billion. You can see it's so far beyond what the character could have imagined. You can really feel the pain in Mark Baum's face. Despite following some of the best trades in history, the film never lets you celebrate for too long. Even while the trades start to turn profitable for our heroes, we're reminded that it's the everyday person that will be hurt when our heroes win. And this is the great tragedy of Mark Baum's character. Despite becoming rich, all he ever really wanted was financial corruption to have a price. And just when he's hoping that that price will be paid, he learns that unless he pulls the trade now, he'll be helping the very people he's betting against.
Stock is well tapped its value down to 23.10. It's in a free fall. Clients wanted to talk to you about pulling their money. I mean, it's now or never, Mark. We gotta sell. Mark. Mark, can you hear me?
Mark, you there?
Mark.
Paulson and Bernanke just left the White House. There's going to be a bailout.
Well, they had to. Right? I mean, paper markets would have
They
collapsed.
knew.
Cash would have stopped coming out of ATMs. They had to backstop this.
They knew the taxpayers would bail them out. They weren't being stupid. They just didn't care.
Yeah, because they're fucking crooks. But
At least we're going to see some of them go to jail. Right? I mean, they're going to have to break up the banks.
I mean, the party's over.
I don't know. I have a feeling that in a few years, people are going to be doing what they always do when the economy tanks. They will be blaming immigrants and poor people.